There is a quiet power in stepping back rather than leaning in allowing yourself to become just a little less available than before. Most people instinctively believe that being constantly present, always responding, always offering explanations or attention is the key to being valued or loved. Yet human psychology works differently. When someone is always within reach, when your presence is predictable, their mind begins to take it for granted. They no longer feel the same level of curiosity or urgency. But the moment you create a subtle distance, a shift in availability, the brain notices a contrast, and contrast creates emotional energy. When you are not constantly there, your absence suddenly becomes noticeable. They start replaying moments, recalling conversations, and thinking about the things you said. They may not consciously understand why, but your selective presence starts stirring an unexpected pull. And this is where emotional intrigue begins to build. Without forcing attention or trying to manipulate feelings, this single shift, being a little less present, sparks curiosity and makes your interactions carry far more weight than before. This effect is strengthened by valuing your own time and energy. When you act as though your attention is precious, when you live your life fully and do not revolve around someone else's every move, it sends an unspoken message of independence and self-respect. People are drawn to what feels rare, valuable, and meaningful. By being calm, composed, and selective with your time, you allow others to notice the significance of your presence. Your words begin to hold more weight. Your gestures feel intentional, and even your silence communicates meaning. Independence is magnetic because it reflects confidence. When someone sees that your sense of fulfillment does not depend solely on them, it triggers a natural desire to seek connection with you, not out of obligation, but because they genuinely want to engage with someone who commands respect and carries their own emotional gravity. Silence and space are critical components in this dynamic. When you resist the urge to fill every quiet moment with messages, calls, or explanations, you give the other person time to reflect and imagine. Human beings have an innate tendency to fill empty spaces with thought and emotion. When your presence is not constant, they begin to replay interactions, remember your kindness, your humor, and your thoughtful words. These reflections deepen emotional attachment without you having to overexert yourself. Emotional tension grows not from chasing, but from allowing the mind to revisit what was meaningful, building anticipation and value. The more meaningful and rare your presence becomes, the more it impacts them subconsciously, creating a pull that words or explanations alone cannot generate. Confidence is the silent engine behind this pull. When you carry yourself with composure, showing that your life is full and your identity is independent, it creates an aura of quiet power. Confidence does not seek approval, it simply exists. This signals to others that you are someone whose presence is earned, not given indiscriminately. Emotional attraction often thrives on this understanding. People are drawn toward individuals who exhibit a sense of self-assuredness and emotional stability. By demonstrating that your fulfillment does not depend entirely on their attention, you create a dynamic where they begin to notice your value more profoundly. This subtle shift is more impactful than constant attention because it engages their curiosity, respect, and emotional awareness in ways that overt pursuit never could. Ultimately, the deepest emotional effect comes from allowing your absence to be felt naturally. When you are not constantly available, the space you leave behind becomes noticeable, and they begin to realize the impact of your presence. The mind naturally lingers on what is missing, and what is missing becomes meaningful. This process does not require manipulation, pressure, or artificial tactics. It is simply the natural consequence of showing self-respect, calm confidence, and intentional presence. When someone begins to reflect on your absence, they think about you, recall the unique ways you contributed to their day, and start to feel a pull they cannot fully explain. It is this quiet, selective presence paired with independence and confidence that creates lasting emotional impact. By being intentional about your attention and valuing your own life, you allow others to see you as someone truly significant, someone whose presence matters deeply, sometimes even more than they initially realize. Human beings are naturally wired to notice what is rare and meaningful. When someone is constantly present, always offering attention and endlessly available, their value can begin to fade in the eyes of others, not because they are less important, but because predictability reduces emotional impact. On the other hand, when you create subtle distance and establish boundaries, you introduce contrast. Contrast triggers the mind to pay attention, to notice, and to reflect. This is why the simple act of being a little less available can be profoundly effective. It is not about playing games or manipulating feelings. It is about demonstrating self-respect and independence. When someone begins to realize that your time, attention, and presence are not guaranteed, it sparks curiosity. They start replaying interactions in their mind, reflecting on your words, your gestures, and the moments that made an impression. This reflection, driven by the absence you create, plants the seeds of emotional attachment. They may not immediately understand why they feel drawn to you, but the subtle pull is there. It is the natural response to noticing something they cannot always access. By stepping back intentionally, you allow the other person to value your presence more deeply, to think about you more often, and to begin to miss the energy and attention you naturally provide when you are fully present. Emotional impact grows when you respect yourself and your priorities. When you live your life fully, when you focus on your goals, passions, and responsibilities, it communicates that your energy is precious. You are not desperate for approval or constant validation, and that creates a magnetic quality. Independence is attractive because it signals stability and self-worth. People instinctively want to be around those who are grounded, confident, and emotionally secure. Your calmness and composed demeanor show that you are in control of your own happiness. When someone senses that you are not dependent on their attention for fulfillment, they begin to appreciate your presence in a new way. Your time and energy feel valuable because they are not given indiscriminately. Each interaction carries significance because it is intentional. This subtle shift changes the way the other person experiences you, fostering a deeper emotional connection that is rooted in respect and curiosity rather than neediness or overexposure. The power of silence cannot be overstated. Many people fear that stepping back will make others lose interest, but the opposite is often true. Silence allows space for reflection, imagination, and emotional processing. When you do not rush to fill every quiet moment with contact, the other person begins to revisit memories, to replay conversations, and to notice details they might have overlooked. This reflective space amplifies your presence because the mind fills the void with thoughts and emotions connected to you. Your absence becomes meaningful, and they start to notice patterns and qualities that were always there but taken for granted. By allowing them to experience your presence selectively, you create emotional contrast. They begin to realize the impact of your attention, the value of your energy, and the uniqueness of your presence. In this way, stepping back and creating thoughtful space can strengthen the emotional bond far more than constant effort or attention ever could. Confidence reinforces this dynamic. True confidence does not seek validation. It exists quietly and powerfully. When you carry yourself with assurance, when you demonstrate that your life is full and that your fulfillment does not depend solely on someone else, it creates attraction. People naturally respect and are drawn to those who show independence and self-worth. This confidence signals that you are someone whose presence is meaningful and worth noticing. Emotional curiosity grows when someone senses they cannot automatically access your attention. By being selective with your presence, you create a dynamic where they begin to value the moments they do have with you more intensely. This is not about manipulation, but about allowing your natural worth, calm demeanor, and intentional behavior to speak for themselves. It is in this space between presence and absence that genuine attraction and emotional connection flourish. One of the most overlooked aspects of emotional connection is the subtle power of mystery. When someone always knows your every move, always expects a response, and always feels your presence, the sense of intrigue diminishes. Human attention thrives on curiosity, on not knowing exactly what someone is thinking or feeling. Creating mystery does not mean being manipulative or dishonest. It means allowing your life, your priorities, and your choices to remain fully yours, while still being genuinely present when it matters. By living intentionally and not over-explaining yourself, you allow the other person to fill in the gaps with their imagination. This space fosters reflection, emotional engagement, and the quiet questioning of why they feel drawn to you. The mind is naturally curious about what is not easily obtained, and when someone realizes that your attention is not guaranteed, it becomes more meaningful. This simple shift in behavior, being selectively present, sparks a form of emotional intrigue that cannot be created by constant proximity or overexposure. It is the subtle dance between presence and absence that makes someone think of you, wonder about you, and eventually begin to feel the pull of missing you without even fully understanding why. Equally important is the role of self-respect and boundaries in cultivating this effect. When you demonstrate that your time and energy are valuable, you send a silent but powerful message. Your attention is not free, it is earned. Many people do not realize how attractive calm, composed independence can be. When you stop chasing validation or over-investing in someone else's attention, you allow the natural emotional rhythm to take over. The contrast between availability and absence triggers reflection, encouraging the other person to notice the impact of your presence. Boundaries are not walls, they are signals of your self-worth. They show that you are someone who values themselves, someone whose attention carries significance. This shift often causes people to reconsider how they view you and how they prioritize your presence in their own life. By being intentional with how and when you engage, you transform ordinary interactions into moments that carry weight, making your presence something to be appreciated rather than taken for granted. The psychology of emotional contrast further amplifies the effect. When someone experiences intermittent absence, their mind starts to focus on the memories, the feelings, and the moments that were enjoyable when you were around. They replay conversations, laugh at shared jokes, and remember thoughtful gestures. This reflective process magnifies the impact of your presence because the mind naturally assigns more value to what is not constant. The emotional tension that arises from not knowing exactly what you are doing or when you will next appear becomes magnetic. It is not about causing anxiety, it is about creating a natural curiosity and appreciation that develops organically. By stepping back and allowing the mind to process your absence, you give the other person the opportunity to recognize the significance of your presence. This effect deepens emotional connection and builds an attachment that goes beyond superficial engagement, fostering a sense of longing and reflection that is subtle yet profoundly impactful. Finally, calm confidence serves as the foundation for all of this. When you live with assurance, when your fulfillment does not depend on someone else, it communicates stability, self-worth, and emotional strength. People are naturally drawn to individuals who are secure in themselves because it signals reliability, emotional balance, and intentionality. By combining selective presence with independence, you create a dynamic where your value becomes apparent and your absence creates emotional resonance. They begin to notice you more, think about you more, and ultimately feel your absence without ever needing it to be forced. This approach fosters authentic attraction, deepens curiosity, and allows emotional connection to grow in a natural, unpressured way, ensuring that your presence is truly appreciated and remembered. One of the most powerful lessons in human connection is understanding that emotional energy is finite and precious. When you constantly give your attention, respond immediately, or explain yourself repeatedly, you risk diluting the value of your presence. People naturally respond more to things that feel rare and meaningful rather than predictable and always available. By consciously reserving your attention and making your presence selective, you create emotional contrast that stimulates curiosity. This is not about manipulation or playing games. It is about demonstrating that your time, focus, and energy are valuable. When someone realizes that your presence is not guaranteed, it triggers reflection. They begin to replay conversations, notice the little details about you they may have overlooked, and think about the impact you have on their day. Your absence becomes a subtle but powerful reminder of your significance. It is this balance of presence and distance that cultivates emotional intrigue, sparking a natural pull that cannot be forced or manufactured. Simply by respecting your own energy and living intentionally, you invite others to notice your value in a way that constant availability could never achieve. Another essential element is the way independence enhances attraction. Confidence rooted in self-sufficiency communicates strength without words. When someone senses that your happiness and fulfillment are not tied solely to their attention, it creates a magnetic quality. People are drawn to those who live intentionally, pursue their goals, and maintain a sense of purpose outside of the relationship. Independence signals that you have priorities, ambitions, and a life of your own, which in turn makes your presence more meaningful. By stepping back occasionally and focusing on yourself, you encourage the other person to reflect on your influence in their life. They start to appreciate the moments you choose to share, seeing your engagement as intentional and significant rather than automatic. This approach fosters admiration, respect, and emotional connection naturally. It highlights the importance of balance, being present enough to maintain connection but stepping back enough to cultivate value, curiosity, and desire. Silence and selective engagement are equally critical. In a culture that prizes constant communication, allowing moments of quiet can feel counterintuitive, yet it is one of the most effective ways to deepen emotional resonance. When you do not rush to fill every space with messages, calls, or explanations, you create room for reflection. The other person begins to replay interactions in their mind, recalling your gestures, humor, or thoughtful words. These mental rehearsals strengthen attachment and create anticipation for the next interaction. Emotional tension naturally emerges from absence, prompting curiosity and longing without any overt effort on your part. The power lies in subtlety, being intentionally present while allowing your absence to be noticed and felt. This process encourages appreciation, reflection, and emotional engagement that goes beyond superficial interactions, cultivating a bond that is authentic and deeply felt. Finally, calm confidence amplifies all of these effects. People are drawn to those who carry themselves with assurance, who do not seek constant validation, and whose fulfillment does not depend entirely on others. This quiet self-assuredness communicates stability, emotional intelligence, and value. By combining selective presence with independence, you create an environment where your absence is felt and your presence is cherished. They begin to think about you more, notice your qualities, and experience the pull of missing you without needing to be told or prompted. This method encourages natural curiosity, emotional reflection, and attachment that develops organically. It is in this careful balance of presence, absence, and self-respect that deep and lasting emotional influence emerges, ensuring your presence is appreciated and your impact remembered. Emotional connection often thrives not through constant attention, but through the way absence is experienced. Many people believe that keeping someone close requires relentless communication and continuous availability, yet overexposure can diminish emotional impact. When your presence is always assured, it loses some of its significance. People naturally respond to contrast, and the moment you create subtle distance, curiosity is sparked. This is not about manipulation. It is about demonstrating self-respect and intentionality. By being selectively present, you allow the other person to notice the value of your attention. They begin to reflect on interactions, replay meaningful conversations, and appreciate the qualities that might have been overlooked in constant proximity. The human mind is wired to notice what feels rare, and by reserving your energy and presence, you create a natural pull that encourages reflection and emotional engagement. Without overexerting yourself, you can make your presence more memorable, impactful, and desired simply through the balance of presence and absence. Boundaries and self-respect amplify this effect. When you show that your time and energy are not limitless and that your attention is earned, it communicates independence and personal value. People are naturally drawn to those who demonstrate emotional stability and autonomy. Independence signals that your life is full, your priorities are meaningful, and your fulfillment does not rely entirely on someone else. By living intentionally and focusing on your own growth, you make each interaction purposeful. The other person begins to notice that your engagement is not automatic, it is significant. This shift encourages appreciation and reflection. Calm confidence paired with selective presence transforms